Hey, good morning, and I am delighted to be here. I'm delighted to see all of you here. The lights are blinding a little, but that's normal and fine. I was looking at my notes, and it was 22nd of October 2019 when we had the Magento community together at large in Europe, and that was Magento Live Europe in Amsterdam. I bumped into several people who I have not seen since then, just now in the back, Karen from Shipper. But I look forward to catching up with everyone today. It's been too long, and despite the best efforts of train drivers, tube drivers, COVID, Brexit, add to the list, we're all here, and I'm just pleased to see the room full. Predictably, no one wants to sit in the front row, which is very British and very typical, as Jamie was talking about. So, my name is Peter Bell. I run marketing in the UK and across EMEA for Adobe. Please don't hold that against me. And that gives me a good segue into just a statement I want to make, because the last 2 years of purely digital have led to numerous rumors about Adobe's commitment to the commerce business post-acquisition of Magento. And whilst it's completely appropriate to be under the Adobe name some 4 years on since acquisition, we are absolutely 100% committed to this market. It is the #1 growth business that I run. In my portfolio of activities, my day job is pipeline generation for our sales team. Many of you know Brian Green. I worked alongside until he moved within Adobe recently. And it is the place we are driving the most growth. It is the place we added most new logos in 2021. It is a big business for Adobe. And we're not just committed to it as a commercial enterprise, but we are 100% committed to the ongoing maintenance and development, adding to the code base we know as Magento 2. So if you hear rumors to the contrary, if you hear statements which don't align with that, please just remember, if you remember one thing from this morning, is that commitment. It's real, it's backed by investment, it's backed by a real sentiment to be part of this community. I could not be more delighted to have put budget aside much earlier in the year when Jamie asked if we would be participating again. Please don't let our competitors do our talking for us. We're a little conservative. We're a good American corporation. We have to be careful not to give air to unsubstantiated and scurrilous rumors. We are committed to this market. So this morning I'm going to take you through some research I actually inherited from colleagues at Magento. This research has been running 3 years, and what it does is gets inside the minds of the shopper. It's really asking people why they're shopping in a particular way, what are they purchasing, what are the drivers behind their own behaviors. And it was a really interesting piece of research. And what we've been able to do over the years since acquisition is develop it and make it bigger. The bigger the sample size, of course, the more statistically robust it is. And this year, thanks to slightly deeper pockets and slightly larger marketing budget as part of Adobe, we've been able to go out to 12 countries, right across Europe from here to the United Arab Emirates, across almost 10,000 interviews. I wish we'd just broken the 10,000. If I'd known we got to 9,565, I might have pushed to do the extra 45, so I could say it was 10,000. But statistically, it won't make much difference. And we completed this last November. So this is fresh research. It then takes us several months just to go through, figure out what people are thinking, and I'd like to share those findings with you today. The full report and things are available online, but I've also got some year-over-year views, because I have the fortunate situation that I'm looking at 3 years' worth of data. So, first off, what are people buying? And what you see up here, you'll not be too surprised by the composition. Obviously, there's a category not on the slide called Other, because it's not worth reporting because it's too small. But let me share some of the year-over-year statistics, because they actually make the most interesting reading. So clothing and shoes, obviously the high street's been closed. People's appetite to shop is still there. Even if they're all dressed up with nowhere to go, people still wanted clothing. And this has gone up from 54% to, as you can see, 83%. 30-point jump. That's a really, really significant sort of jump in terms of the number of people who are shopping for clothing and shoes online. But there are two categories which we've not seen before in the prior 3 years. The first is health and beauty care. This has come from nowhere to 69%. So 7 in 10 people are now buying beauty products online. They've obviously overcome the concerns of counterfeit products and all the rest, and the things which were being cited as barriers in prior years. It's amazing, a pandemic does force change, and it's absolutely driven this online. So if you're Boots, you've now got a whole range of new competitors, people like Bumble and Bumble and Natinho and others. And I see that Estee Lauder have been very active in buying up these sites which have established a community of shoppers as new channels to market. And this has come from literally nowhere over 12 months. It just, as I say, it was down in there in other. There was a little bit of activity. But 7 in 10 people, anything, by the way, in these statistics, anything above sort of 70, 75% is roughly the same number of people who have a washing machine or a TV or a microwave in their home. So at that point, you're effectively at, you're actually at full market penetration. The other one which has come from nowhere is gardening and DIY products. Clearly, a large portion of this was garden furniture. One good summer in the UK, a lockdown, and we're all suddenly garden enthusiasts. I have a statistic which I'm going to spoil by telling you now because it's my favorite statistic. I'll go into the categories a little later, but one of the things that people are looking for when they're buying these bigger purchases, like gardening equipment or sofas and the like, is free returns. And that's quite an ambitious statement from consumers saying, they buy a sofa and it's bigger than it looked on the internet. I'm not sure the free return is going to be forthcoming, but nevertheless, let me get to that a little later. So sporting goods, again, that's seen gains. The one that hasn't moved is groceries. And whilst the overall market has expanded, this is an area which has really not seen a gain in terms of the number of people who are active online. I should say this survey, all respondents were over 18. They had shopped at least once in the last 3 months online. And obviously there were residents in the places they were surveyed. That hasn't grown as a percentage of shoppers. Clearly the whole market has grown, so there are more people on a net basis. But it's also, I've seen commentary outside this research to say that some of those gains are being lost as people do return to buy foodstuff on the high street rather than online. So these are the things that people are buying. Big gains for clothing, brand new categories of healthcare and beauty, and then a new category of DIY and gardening products. So those are the big shifts in what people are buying. The next thing I'll share before we get into what's in the minds of the shoppers is how are people purchasing. Now, I've been in the technology industry for well over 20 years, and in about 1999, say 2000, I tuned out and became completely tone deaf to the mantra that this is the year of mobile. It just became this. Every year was going to be, this is the year of mobile, this is the year of mobile, this is the year of mobile. And it just got really boring. Here's the thing. 2021 looks like it was the year of mobile from this research. Because 78% of people, their primary device for shopping on the internet is their mobile. That's in comparison to something like 68% of people who are using their computer, and only 20% of people are using the tablet. Now, the tablet's just getting squeezed in the broad market between phones that have got better screens, bigger screens, higher definition, and smaller and lighter laptops. So I don't think that's notable because that market is shrinking. But the fact that the primary device now, around 8 out of 10 people are going to their phone first to shop online, is notable after years of overpromise of the year of mobile. Now, people are using both. There's about 40% of people are switching between the two, but that still is a good percentage for whom the phone is the only and it is the primary device. Now, clearly, things like Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, who are a sponsor here today, their innovations in making the basic experience simple and the act of secure payment seamless absolutely has to have been a driver. But so has the whole mobile experience. How to present something on a limited screen size, how to make the workflow and the customer journey through the site seamless. All of that work has combined to propel mobile to the fore. So if 2021 was the year of mobile, and we've seen the product categories, then what is shaping where people shop and what's in their minds? And we've seen 4 key themes from the raw data. You can see them up here. The whole choice, too much choice, too little choice, personalization piece continues to be a huge narrative. Micro experiences, which is new, I'll explain in a second. The mindful shopper, so this is what are the drivers of purchase beyond price? So for 75% of people, price is still, you've got to be price competitive. But if that's just a commodity, it's just table stakes, as the Americans would say, then what are the other factors that you can differentiate through? And then finally, as you'd expect, because this is a broader narrative in society, people are generally more values aware and driven in terms of your ethics and your sustainability, etc. And we'll spend more time on that in a little while. But let's talk about choice and personalization. It's a proven fact that if you give someone too much choice, they are less likely to purchase. If you walk into a supermarket and you're presented with 20 different types of ketchup, the likelihood is you will walk away because you'll simply be overwhelmed. And there's good research going back to the 50s to support that. Same is true online. So hence the rise of personalization. We use the data we have about you to reduce the choice, but at what point have you reduced the choice too far where the consumer feels restricted? Now, this has typically been a conversation about the second line of product offerings. So the catalog, how much are you ranging, what are you ranging, the merchandiser applying their expertise, and then the data scientist with personalization technology, AI technology, using that to do that at scale and put the right sub-selection of products in front of the right person at the right time. And that's what we're talking about, looking at my slides from 2019, from Magento Live Europe. We're talking about creating shoppable moments, taking that proposition from Magento and putting it together with Adobe's expertise in creating personalized experiences to create that kind of personal shopping experience. Turns out that proposition holds well 2.5 years later. But it's increasingly not just about the product catalog, as you can see here, because what people are citing, generally 7 out of 10 for the first 3 rows, is that choice on delivery and choice on payment methods is as important as choice of product. So when you think about the end-to-end experience, this is quite a different response from what we've seen, where everything is really centered on the product catalog itself. So 7 in 10 people are influenced by the choices given for delivery and for payment. Now, delivery, I think if you look at the people in the expo today, a number of payment providers here today offering discrete and different offerings. And I think that actually talks directly to the fact that this is very much a strong and emerging trend in terms of being competitive and capturing and retaining customers. For any merchants in the audience, I have one requirement here. I want a choice which says, any courier except Hermes. Right? We've all been there. If those live outside the UK, it's not the carrier of choice. But if I could just top tip, if I could have that button, that would be fantastic. The joking aside, though, payment methods, obviously with Klarna and the whole buy now, pay later, deferred payments, etc. We've also got some regional differences which are quite surprising, which I'll wrap up with towards the end of this short talk. And then finally on communication channels, and this really talks to the emergence of mobile, people are quite happy to be contacted through different channels, but they do want choice and they want control around this. So for instance, an obvious one with a mobile device is, geo-fenced advertising. You need the store, get a coupon, get a discount code, give an offer. But equally, things like email for notifying when things are back in stock, when things are about to go out of stock, again, are great at driving completion when people have been browsing. And that browsing theme I'll come on to right now. When you put these together, it's about building an empathetic experience. And when we talk about personalization, we need to remind ourselves that personalization in and of itself is just technology, and therefore it is boring and uninteresting to the customer. What people want is a personal experience with a good range of choices you saw. So you create something which feels empathetic towards me, something which feels like I'm a valued customer. It feels like you're going out your way to create a great experience. Never be confused. Personalization, and yes, it helps us do things at scale with, data science, and we can build customer segments. We can do that through socio and economic information. We can do it through demographic information. We can use AI to predict next purchase. All those great things. But they're not the end, they're the means. And the end product is an empathetic experience which feels seamless and just feels great. That surprise and delight, if you're in retail, this was a big part of Starbucks' early success when it brought American-style customer service to Europe with this notion of surprise and delight. And it works just as well digitally as it does offline. Now, micro-experiences, we haven't seen this before in the research. And what this is about, I want to start with the right-hand statistic, which is people are window shopping more often than they ever have on the internet. Previously, e-commerce was relatively transactional. People would go to the site, they'd look through the range of options, they'd decide if they want to make a purchase, and they'd transact. What we've seen, and perhaps because people are at home with more time, or perhaps because they've got the device in their hands wherever they happen to be, because they're now mobile first, then a lot of people are window shopping. About 5 out of 10 people are window shopping. At the same time, people are also coming to the website multiple times, and they're also combining this with physical visits to the store, as well as multiple visits to your website, as they make a more considered purchase. Now, if you think about those product categories in terms of what people are buying, this is not surprising. Hopefully, people genuinely are not buying a sofa in the way they buy, a new book or something fairly low consideration. They'll be coming backwards and forwards. Do we think it'll work? Do we think it'll fit? And when you look at the product categories, undoubtedly driving this. So what we're seeing is a lot of window shopping, and the opportunity there, of course, is through great marketing and great merchandising to turn that into a purchase, but also to recognize that the customer journey is going to look more complex and understand the analytics around that is tougher than ever as people come in from multiple devices, multiple visits, and potentially also in your retail store on the high street as well. And across this, people are still looking for speed and convenience. The number one, and I maintain this since I first got involved with e-commerce in 1999, the product on sale really across everything is convenience when it comes to e-commerce. That's the fundamental tenet as to what e-commerce offers versus going to the high street, parking the car, going down to the high street, seeing if they have it in stock, getting to the shop, purchasing it, and then making your trip home in reverse. The third theme we saw, and this is, look, 70, as I mentioned earlier, 70% of people are still going to be driven by price. You've got to offer good value. I actually think you don't have to be the cheapest, because if you look at the range of things that are wrapped around it, you don't have to be the cheapest if you're also offering, you're tapping into all these other things like, when we talk about personalization with choice in shipping, choice in payment options, etc. But you've still got to offer good value. But if you look at what's driving people's behaviors, you can see it's not just price. So about just under half is still driven by price, but we've got other drivers here. And again, as you can see, first off, beyond being good value, are you actually fulfilling their need for convenience? Is it quick? Is it going to be delivered on time? Then we've got, what's your values as a retailer? Do you align to my personal values? And I'll go into more detail on this in a moment, but are you a good retailer? Are you someone I want to purchase from and have some sort of brand association with? And then finally, are you making me feel special? Are you creating this empathetic experience? So you can see these are more influential than they've ever been. Price is not going away. But you can see these in the background really, really making people drive their decisions a little differently beyond just simply being the cheapest. And I just want to draw a quick example. Hawksmoor, just the restaurant chain, are a customer of ours. And like everyone in lockdown, they were forced into closure. I mean, they just simply had to close. They had a business one day, they didn't have it the next day, and over an extended period of time, they couldn't reopen. Now, like many restaurants, they turned to cook-at-home kits. But what I love about what Hawksmoor did is they had pause for thought. Hey, look, when people come to the restaurant, we don't just slap food on the table. We look to create a dining experience which brings them back, maybe pay a small premium for the overall experience rather than just being the cheapest place to get, to get fuel. So what they did was, with the use of QR codes, is they included through those QR codes two things to try and recreate some of what they do in the restaurant at home. One was having their chefs show you how to prepare this, so YouTube videos, with the chefs themselves who created the kits showing you how to create it. So you're sat at the chef's table, if you will. And the second was Spotify playlists to reflect the music they would play in their restaurants. Now, I just love the way they thought about this and thought about how do we transfer the physical world into the digital world beyond just the raw ingredients that we're going to ship out, which, whilst well put together, aren't necessarily that differentiated. In terms of values-driven, the trend here is just going up. We're not at the 70-80%, but you can see here 6 and 10 shoppers are more likely to shop with a brand who aligns with their personal values, and 43% of them are absolutely driven by what's the sustainability story around those products. This could be excess packaging, or it could be in the manufacture of the product itself, assuming it's physical. So 4 out of 10 people will actively support that, and I read actively support as I will choose them over those who are not environmentally responsible. Almost the same number are interested in employee welfare and what the reputation around employee welfare is. And again, very similar number about are they financially trustworthy? Do they pay their taxes? Now, at this point, some of you will be thinking, Amazon, number one in the market. And when you're number one in the market, candidly, you're held to a higher bar. And by being held to a higher bar, you'll get a lot more scrutiny. You're going to attract more criticism. You've got less room for maneuver. And you've got one of two choices. And this is true whether you're large or small. But when you're large, it is, do I engage in that dialogue, or do I run away from it? And Amazon, I'm sure they've got similar research to this. During the pandemic, put this video out. So if we can play the video, and I'll just offer a couple of quick comments.
My name is Janelle Henderson, and I'm an area manager here at Amazon. When you walk into an Amazon fulfillment center, it's like walking into the chocolate factory and you want a golden ticket. It's an amazing feeling. My 3-year-old, when we get a box delivered, he gets excited. He screams, "Mommy's work." When the pandemic started, we started shipping out all the safety stuff that would keep associates safe to all the other Amazons. All of these are face masks. We've sent well over 10 million gloves. And does it look like a bottle of vodka? When we first got these, we were like, whoa! With this pandemic, safety is even more important because they're going home to babies. They're going home to grandparents. So our responsibility is to make sure that they go home safe every single day.
Now look, I'm not pretending that one YouTube video is going to solve all of the questions that surround Amazon. Nor am I suggesting it's the only reason their sales rose 37% during the pandemic. But I do know from experience that taking that type of leadership position, engaging in the debate, will serve you better in the long term than staying away from it. So whatever size merchants you're working with, or you're a merchant yourself, give thought. 4 out of 10 people are taking these issues seriously, and there are a decision as to whether they shop with you or not. This will only go up in the coming year. I could see this in 12 months' time being somewhere near the 60% mark. There'll still continue to be pricing pressures, but people care about this stuff, and they are acting on it in terms of where they choose to spend their money, however much money they have in their pocket. I think that's just a good example of the type of story you have to tell as a merchant around who you are and how you can turn that to your competitive benefit. Oops, next slide. All right, okay. So those are the 4 main themes. I got 2 short sections. I'm not going to dwell too much time on here, just going through. We first of all got shopping across different regions, and then some differences we saw in different product categories. Now, I'm not going to walk through every statistic in every country because, frankly, there are other speakers that you want to hear from this morning and the rest of the day. So let's just take the highlights. First off, regional differences in terms of, first off, where do we expect to shop more across EMEA, and what's the range? So UAE, 70% of people expect to shop more, whereas in France, only 30% of people expect to shop more. Kind of reflective of the French culture, I thought, no surprise there. Being prepared to pay more for speed and convenience, highest rate is South Africa, but only the lowest in Switzerland. So you can see here, there's a lot of room here for getting out of the rat race on the price to the bottom and being the cheapest, and instead creating value through some of the things we've talked about. Now this one's interesting because don't read the highs as positive. These highs are negative. The number of people who say that retailers could be doing more to show a higher degree of empathy to customer needs. Only 2 in 10 people in Spain are happy with their online experience. If any of you are in the Spanish market, there may be an opportunity here to deliver a better experience. Even Sweden, which was the lowest, was 60%, and other countries in between. There's a lot of room for improvement in the experiences that we provide and how we use the data to inform that. Slight aside, again, public service announcement on behalf of Peter Bell. If anyone would implement on their website a checkbox that says, "This is a gift purchase, do not put this into future recommendations," I'd be delighted. It seems like such a simple thing. I keep asking for it. I have a soapbox, as you can see, and it never seems to get done. Very little difference in terms of when are you more likely to shop online. We can see convenience coming out here. I was short on time. The product was in high demand. I think this probably talks most to fashion, where you see some things that come in and out of stock very quickly, or I want same-day delivery. Very little regional difference. Preferred payments. Again, I think some of these markets I know better than others. Germany, my experience is Germany is, doesn't have high adoption of credit cards. It's very cash-based society. You only get stranded in a taxi coming from a German airport to your hotel once with a credit card to learn they're not going to take it. But the bank transfers was interesting because I'm an avid online shopper. And the arrival of my kids just coincided with the advent of eCommerce, which meant I didn't have to traipse them around, a supermarket, whatever, on a Saturday morning. I could do it from the comfort of my own home. The only time I've ever used a bank transfer is to buy a car, and I bought several cars online. Avid online shopper, as I say. And yet, in Germany, and I think this just talks to the lack of acceptance of credit cards more than anything, because it's an unusual thing to come out so strongly. Buy now, pay later. Obviously, Klarna is the story here. They're not the only people offering that service now, but clearly, as market leader and based out of Sweden, that's driven that. And then in South Africa, again, this probably talks, I don't know this market terribly well, but it probably talks to the lack of penetration of credit cards and acceptance of them. But I was slightly bemused that cash on delivery was the preferred option. Right, okay, different product types, some differences. No big surprises in clothing and shoes. Look, it's all about delivery, it's all about returns, and sales and offers and coupons. I don't think there's anything interesting in there. Food and groceries. I must change this slide, actually, because home delivery is really important and as the timeliness, but 9 out of 10 people say the 1-hour delivery slot is critical to their choosing to shop with you if you're in the groceries business. Furniture and home furnishings, I mentioned at the start, 40% of people want to order a sofa that has free returns. My answer to that is good luck. But more interesting is this is the only category in which virtual reality came out strongly. And this is obvious, you know, to avoid that here, it looked smaller on the internet. Then being able to visualize this, being able to place this in your home, see what it looks like, is it too big or small? This is the only category where that came through strong. Healthcare and beauty, this new category that's emerged. Multiple purchases. There was a lot of visits here. Clearly, despite the fact, I mean, these products can be reasonably expensive, you know, as even in the sort of mid-range for this, you're into sort of 50, 60 pounds a bottle or something. And, you know, there's a lot of consideration going into here. So here's where you do see a lot of repeat visits. And, you know, offers, sales, coupons, etc. on fairly pricey items come through strongly. DIY and garden. Again, I must update this slide. People are prepared to wait for delivery. This is the only category where people are happy to take, say, a 2-3 week ship time, whereas in the other categories, not interested, can't wait, won't wait, buy somewhere else. But this one, there is an acceptance that you may have to wait for stock. So, 4 key takeaways just before I wrap up. First off, 64% of retailers would like to see retailers personalizing in-store and offline. So that omnichannel experience is absolutely 6 in 10 people. Similar amount that their online experience is influencing their offline experience and vice versa. So if one of them is letting you down, you're probably losing that customer. 65% of people are visiting websites repeatedly before making purchase, so less of a transactional. Again, I think the category, the composition of the product categories is driving this. And then finally, a whopping 9 out of 10 people are saying that the things they care about are placing a greater influence on where they shop and who they shop with. And that would be my main message for you in closing today, that being good value, you have to be. But being able to tell a good story around your environmental policy, your employee welfare, your general approach to things like taxation and other thorny topics, you've got to be in front of those. If everyone aspires to be number one in their market, don't wait to get to number one and then have to deal with it, because it's hard then. Think about these trends. Thank you for your time and attention this morning. There are a number of other Adobe presenters. I know Marion and Ray are presenting. John Baxendale is covering product, I think, standing here at 4:45. I look forward to seeing you in the expo. I look forward to seeing you in the core bar later. If I don't see you in the expo, the train strikes have given me the perfect excuse not to return home this evening, so I can join the party this evening without hindrance. And look, delighted that we're all here. Again, commerce is a huge business for Adobe. The community is a huge part of we see ourselves within that community, and I look forward to talking to you all during the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.